Hey everybody, my name is Adam Ariano. I'm a field CTO with Harness. Came to Harness via Traceable, so I'm also a security nerd as well as a DevOps nerd. So you could even call me a DevSecOps nerd. I'm joined today for our DevSecOps Summit by Tanya. And so please introduce yourself, Tanya, and give us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Tanya Janka. I'm also known as SheX Purple, and basically I was a software developer. I switched into application security, and then I started talking about it and writing books about it, and now I give training about it. So yeah, I have a very similar background, Adam.
Yeah, super happy to have you here. And I did find my singular purple shirt from B-Sides Raleigh, RDU in particular. So I was pretty excited to have you. The SheHex Purple brand is well known, and I love the theme myself. And so really what the purpose of this DevSecOps Summit is to kind of talk more about the philosophy and the trends around DevSecOps, not so much the specifics. We're not going to get into some really cool, brass tacks about how to actually get things done, but we want to talk more about trends in the industry, what kind of influences are happening right now, and there may or may not be a reference or two to a type of intelligence that is less than official. It could even be artificial. So we'll probably get there at some point. But really, what you and I have to discuss is the more fun parts about this. So let's kick off with something that everybody's both worried about and using and also scared of. Let's talk about vibe coding. Now, when I say vibe coding, Tanya, what comes to mind for you?
It makes me so my definition is that basically the AI is writing pretty much all the code, and the developer is more asking, oh, I want a thing that does this, I want a thing that does that. Can you just make it for me?
I always get back to the feeling of it being a whole vibe. Like, I don't really understand why it's called that in particular, other than you're just like, yeah, I really want something to happen. And then it does, and you're like, oh, that must be a vibe. Like, love that. Like, to me, it's one of those things where someone who doesn't necessarily have the skill set to build a complex or complicated set of instructions or even program anything or code anything will be able to use some kind of artificial intelligence assistance to be able to produce a thing that does something that normally they wouldn't ever be able to get to. The real question, though, is it inherently good or bad in your opinion?
So I don't think it's necessarily okay. So it's definitely not inherently good.
Are we going to put percentages on it? Could we do that?
I don't want to say it's bad. So I feel like so when someone's in flow state, the information's just flowing out of you, the creativity's just flowing out of you. I think that part's great. I think that part's inherently good. I think the part that I'm concerned about is that then we're so excited and we're so in the moment that then we skip the security checks, and we're not doing the other parts that we would normally do when we're maybe not so in the flow state. And we're like, oh, I know I still need to, let's say do stack analysis, or I need to make sure there aren't secrets in my code that shouldn't be there. And so I don't think that it's inherently bad, but I think that sometimes it can lead us to forget all the stuff we know we're supposed to do, like our chores.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Like our chores. I feel both judged at the same time enlightened by that statement. I think it's it's hilarious to think about the fact that part of what comes with writing good code is taking care of good code. And what's fascinating about vibe coding in particular, especially for people who are just barely picking it up and figuring it out, is that they actually don't know that you have to do that. One extreme of vibe coding is the people who just have no background whatsoever, have never done the care and feeding of good code, so they don't have any idea. But do you think that it also is something that is used or will be used by people who are a bit more experienced?
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's so although writing code's a pleasure, when you get stuck on some syntax or whatever, it's so nice to have the AI be like, oh, that's a semicolon, not a colon, Tanya. Like, yes, it compiles. I am magic.
Yeah.
So I do definitely think that software, like highly skilled software developers and architects are definitely using AI all the time too. I think, if anything, the people that are more advanced are probably using it more, if that makes sense, because they're the type of person that's like, there's a new tool, I will master this new tool.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does. It's almost like a force multiplier for them that they can do even more than they were able to do before. No, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned earlier, like, that we're forgetting a lot of security. Like, what are some basic security things that we're forgetting when we're kind of pumping this code out super fast?
Okay, so I know we're going to talk about a system development lifecycle at some point, and those people that don't write code for a living, or that didn't used to write code for a living, that haven't taken software development or engineering courses, they also don't necessarily know all the steps that you would do. So when you do a system development lifecycle, it's like the steps you do to make sure you're releasing a really good piece of software, right? And part of that is security. And so it could be doing unit tests, but it could also be making sure that you wrote security user stories to test your security features. It could mean that before you even start the project, you had an AppSec person assigned to your project to help steer the project and basically do the partnership model where they answer questions or they create security requirements. It could be that you took secure coding training so that when the code comes out of the AI, you can actually read and understand it and see, oh no, that's not a stored procedure. That's inline SQL. Wait a minute, I'm not supposed to do that. Right? And so I think a thing I see, and I'd love to ask your opinion on this, Adam, whenever we have like a new technology and we're all excited about it, I seem to notice it's like we forget about security. Like, we're doing APIs, yes, awesome, I'll just connect to random ones on the internet. It's like, no, we don't have to do that. Do you find that too, or no?
Yeah, completely. I think it's one of those things where you learn about a new way of doing something and you don't have any built up pain. You don't have any built up experience. We'll call it experience, not pain. Well, you don't have any built up experience about the ways that could go wrong. And so you just assume that it's great. This one, I think, is especially apt of a comparison that you're making because of the speed at which you can produce code and then forget about those security checks. You've just introduced, like, not just a small amount, but a mountain of new problems into the system.
Yeah, technical debt, even. Security and a lot of people argue that technical debt is security debt. It's just almost always security debt.
Yeah.
Like, there's
And
rare
you know what's
chances
funny?
where it's...
I have fought that idea of technical debt for a very long time, but I feel like I'm less inclined to fight it. To me, it was always whatever decision was made at the time that it was made, with the resources, information, and expertise that you had at the time, is a decision that was made. Later, that decision will prove to be something that needs to be changed, and that's what we call technical debt. But I think actually with the rise of accelerated coding through AI, technical debt is a more apt term that I don't think that I'm going to argue with as much, because it really is like, okay, you just made this mountain of code. Like, there is some serious pay down that needs to happen so that we can even get that to production safely. Although I don't think that that's everybody's priority.
Oh, I agree. I met with a client yesterday, and their CEO has decided that anyone is able to make code and put it in prod now. And that that the security team's not going to get in the way. And that anyone can innovate now. And so the security team is like, what do I do about, like, these random marketing people that made a new website and put it on the internet and vibe coded the whole thing, and like it fell down 4 minutes later, and and then they're like, security team, you suck. And we're like, what?
So what is the answer to that? What do you say to a security team who's been told to stay out of the way or else?
So that was what we were working on. Because basically, so there's two trains of thought. So some people are going to follow a system development lifecycle, and I'm like, your AI needs to be part of your system development lifecycle. And I'm like, and some of them in that organization aren't. And I'm like, you need to create some safety nets and some guardrails and some rules. And it's not going to be a whole SDLC, because that person's never seen code in their life. But there's going to have to be like some sort of training wheels that get them there more safely. And also, and Adam, I'd love to hear your opinion on this. So when I started doing security, I immediately thought every security flaw was my responsibility. I'm like, I'm the security team, and if it's insecure, it's my fault. And then very quickly, I was like, I don't have the authority to force these devs to fix the thing. So how can I be responsible but not have the authority? I'm like, that sounds like a scapegoat. And so I changed my stance to, with the help of some mentors, to I'm going to explain the risk to your team, including the management, and we'll do it verbally, but after I'll put it in writing. And I'm like, so if you continue this way, so I've warned you of these risks, and if you continue this way, these are the risks you're accepting on behalf of the business. And I would often ask them, like, can you sign off on this? And they'd be like, no, I'm not signing off on it. I'm like, well, it doesn't matter because it's in writing, and you've been informed in writing. And by continuing to do the thing I warned you not to do, you've accepted the risk, right? And no one's going to be like, oh, this is clearly Tanya's fault after, if that makes sense. And it's not that I want it to not be my fault, it's that I'm hoping they'll just not do it and they'll see the light.
Yeah.
And a lot of them did. Like a huge percentage were like, okay, so let's split the difference here, or, you know, maybe we can fix some of those or adjust, or, right? And then some are like, I'm just going to go right ahead. And then if it blew up in their face, they'd be like, we know you told us, so now how do we fix it? I'm like, hey, let's fix it.
Yeah,
right?
and it's interesting because from like a psychological perspective, nobody's intentionally trying to do bad things, but people do have differing priorities. And a lot of times, especially for engineering shops and dev shops, their primary priority is to ship code, and that's the thing that they're assigned. And so like they don't have a lot of incentive to go after those other things. And to your point, the responsibility without authority is a real problem, like a very real problem, where if something goes wrong, it is usually heaped at the security team's feet. I have a good friend named L. They posit that it kind of is the security team's fault because there's nobody else in the company that's responsible for security except for the security team. That being said, it doesn't mean that everything can be laid at their feet, but it is the security team's responsibility to figure out how to help people get to that point, which I think brings us to kind of the second part of this conversation is like we've talked about vibe coding and the rise of like AI helping people write a ton of good code, or a ton of, I said good on accident. I don't mean good code. I meant code. Write a ton of new code, and then that kind of larger funnel at the beginning then goes into the rest of the process, the rest of the SDLC that should lead to production, where the rest of the process usually has not been automated or is not using AI to get there. Have you seen backups like that where you've got just this influx of new code coming in? The old processes post coding have not been automated or AI hasn't been applied to those. Like, have you seen that kind of backup happen? I know it's something that several different companies have pointed to as an issue.
So yes and no. So there's a bunch of steps that are supposed to be done, and then I see them just going to prod anyway.
Oh.
I see that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they ran the stack analysis tool, and that's nice. And then they still went to prod with the 23 highs because they're just like, I don't have time for that because it's due Friday, and guess what? It's Friday.
Yeah. Wow.
And yeah, but I've been seeing a lot of that for a long time at a lot of companies where the dynamic scanner runs the pen test. So if a pen tester comes, it's taken so much more seriously. And I think that's good because generally pen test results are like pretty accurate, or you've hired a really bad pen tester. Like usually like, it's like, this is a legit thing that you need to be concerned about, right? Compared to a scanner where some of the things are legit and some might not be as legit. Mm-hmm. And some are like,
yeah.
And so I feel like I've seen a lot of companies where they're just like, well, this feature's due and the customer demanded it and it's happening and I'll fix that later. And some of them do fix it later, but a lot of them don't. It's in the backlog, Tanya, don't worry. I'm like, that's fine.
It's in the risk register. We wrote it down as something that will kill us one day, but it's written down, so it'll be fine.
Really? Great.
It's
I'm going to
interesting
manage that risk. What does that mean? It means I'm going to do nothing. That's what it means.
I'm going to acknowledge it on paper and then forget about it. Yes, I've seen that happen. It's interesting that you point to the fact that it's not necessarily that a logjam is occurring. and that, you know, an entire river of new code is stopping. What's actually happening is it's just expanding past its banks and going downriver anyway, whether you try and stop it or not. So it's almost like you can't expect it to actually slow down, because like water flowing downhill, it's going to find a way, like nature finds a way. And code will find its way to production no matter what kind of stops you put into it. So really what comes down to, in my eyes, if that's the case, is you have to figure out ways to make the process better and or easier and or quicker to be able to count for all that stuff coming down the line. It's one of our focuses at Harness, making sure that automation and artificial intelligence beyond just the coding is actually occurring in the unit tests and the way that it's, you know, in the way that you go through and make sure that it's passing the scanners, to make sure that it's actually getting reviewed, things like that. Because otherwise, like you said, it's just going to get bypassed and it'll make it to production anyway, which is a dangerous place to be.
Well, this is what DevSecOps was. This was the purpose, Adam. So people were doing waterfall or waterfail, depending upon how you pronounce it. And the security team's like, okay, I have time. I have a year, right? And then they were doing agile, and it's like, oh, I need to really learn to move fast. Then DevOps happened, and we're just like, we can't. We have to change. We have to completely change. And so that's where DevSecOps came from. And it's like, okay, all the devs are using these really cool things called CIs. How the heck do I do that as a security nerd, right? And like, that's where DevSecOps happened. And so I wonder if there's going to be like DevSec AI or something. There'll be some sort of new methodology that all of us security folks are following so we can keep up. Because the reason, if something isn't stopping at the logjam, like, you know, we're getting down to the point where we're supposed to be doing these security processes and they're too slow compared to the rest. What's happening is either we are stopping and the business is upset, or the business is making the incentives such that they just keep going past, right?
Yeah.
And either we need to go faster and find a new way, or the business needs to value security more. And right now, like, we'll see a giant company have a huge breach and stock prices go boop, and then it just continues like nothing happened. Yeah,
that's so fascinating that it is one of the things that where security people definitely wish that there's more value placed on it, but it doesn't seem to be something that's being forced. I do want to go back. So do you know what's interesting is I wonder if we actually need to rename DevSecOps, or if we just need to start actually doing it. Because I don't know that it was even like completely entirely possible back when because I think that phrase is probably 10 years old now, at least. I don't even know how it's happening 10 years ago, but it seems like it was about that long ago that DevSecOps was like, we should do this thing, but I don't know if it was widely accomplished. What do you think?
I think that it didn't work out how we thought. I think that we all added 47 tools to our CI and created a backlog of 5,000 billion bugs that the devs are like, when I look at it, I cry, so I don't look. No, but like, imagine you're a dev and you meet this like nice new feature and you're like, my feature's awesome. I've been working on it 3 weeks. Yes. You run it through the CI and then it's like, you have 3,412 bugs. That's kind of like,
yeah,
that's not a nice feeling, right? And then you look through and a whole bunch are false positives, or there's these other security mitigations so they don't really create that much risk. And then you're reading it and like the scanner stuff, you're like, is this in English? Because it's technically supposed to be written in English, but it's not written in developer language usually. Like, I was demoing, so I was giving training, and like in the last hour, the client was like, yo, could you just like flip on this security tool that we have and we could just go through the results together as like part. I was like, sure, I'll freestyle, whatever. And so we flip it on and we scan this thing. And I, as a person who has written multiple books on the topic, was unable to understand the results of their security scanner. Like 4 out of the 5 bugs their SAST had, I didn't know what they meant.
Yeah.
And they're like, if Tanya Janka can't understand, who wrote a new book on secure coding this year, can't understand what the scanner's telling us to do, how the hell are we going to know what it means? Yeah. And I was just like, I don't know how, I'm sorry, my industry sucks. I didn't know what to say.
Yeah. It's fascinating that it wouldn't even be like, no matter how good that scanner is, what if that scanner was picking up the most important vulnerabilities ever or the most important problems in the world? If not communicated well, what's the point? Does it even matter? Tree falling in the woods, does anybody hear it type thing?
Yeah. And so this DevSecOps promise was like, we're going to automate security and the devs are going to be able to fix bugs earlier in the SDLC and it's going to be faster and it's going to be so great. And the devs are just like, you've given me so many results that I have alert fatigue. I don't know what a lot of it means. You've given me no extra time to fix the things. And now I'm late. And you've told me I have this huge extra responsibility and often zero training to go with that. Like training like on what the tool results mean and how to fix the things. Or better yet, how to not make those bugs in the first place, right?
Yeah. And, you know, it's, to me, it sounds like, especially kind of pointing out the fact that there's a lack of training, a lack of time being given to the devs to actually go back and work on those things. It's almost as if the leadership groups that are in charge of those, both devs and security teams, aren't doing a great job of providing the space and time to be able to do those things.
Yeah, so a thing that I often say is like, so let's say you have a project, if you could have a security sprint about 2/3 of the way through, where all you do for 2 weeks is do all that security work that has been building up. So ideally you're doing other security things like here and there, but like a dedicated amount of time. And so I was at a client site and I was talking to two devs, being a nerd because that's what I do. And then this, one of the super senior security folks came over and they were like, hey, how can we get permission for a security sprint? And he literally was just like, it's your fault if you don't have one. And like it immediately became like this blame game of, because they're like, could you support us in asking our bosses for this sprint? Like, we think this is a great idea. 2/3 of the way through every project, we want a 2-week security sprint from now on. And he was just like, that's your responsibility. I can't help with that. And I was like, no, this is your chance, bud. Like, back them up.
Yeah, they're trying to do you a favor.
Fight with them for what you want. Yeah. And then they literally, their body language, like their shoulders went in there, like, oh, it's okay. And then they kind of looked at me. They're like, well, thanks for training. Bye. And I was like, no. It's like this little puppies are like, oh, I'm going to go now.
They needed more hugs.
I was like, okay, we have to talk about how that conversation went.
Yeah. For real.
You totally want to back them up.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's like the classic miscommunication between those two teams where, you know, one team is used to having a sheriff's badge on and, you know, some bandoleros and stuff and sauntering down the middle of the ghost town and trying to fight the engineers who are really just trying to get something done and really don't want to fight. They just want to work.
But they should be BFFs, in my opinion.
Yes.
Right? So, like, if I had some devs asking, we want a sprint in our project, I'm like, oh, you care about what I care about? What?
Yeah. Let me buy you donuts that whole
that
entire
sounds
week
great.
that you're doing it. Right. It would be
They
the
were
most perfect
asking
thing.
the wrong guy, unfortunately, because he was not the AppSec guy. He was like some completely other area of security. But I was just like, oh, no, but you're still on the security team, right? Like, we're still on their side. Anyway,
We'll blame it
that's
on
my
GRC.
opinion.
That's what we'll do. We'll say that it was somebody in the GRC. They don't get enough grief as it is. I'm just kidding. It might not have been. That's, yeah. If there was a like if there was a sprint for every time there was miscommunication, they would have just all the time in the world to be able to do that kind of stuff. So it comes down to, I think one of the interesting points when you and I were discussing this earlier is that a lot of what is being automated right now, especially in artificial intelligence and LLM, different models and things like that, everybody is falling all over themselves to create new ways to write code faster. Now, for me, that's like the worst thing to automate because it's the most fun thing to do. Like actually coding, actually creating something is like the most fun part of any random developer's job. And the other end of the spectrum is like the least fun part of any of this is like going through and debugging code after, you know, you've tried to run it through and it's hit some kind of roadblock. What's your temperature on that? Do you think that that's really what we should be automating is the most fun part of it? Like, how do you feel about that?
I totally agree with you so much. Someone was suggesting, they're like, oh, Tanya, you should use the AI to write your blogs so you don't have to write them. I'm like, no, writing's my favorite. Speaking and writing's my favorite part of my job. Why would I give that? No, it can do my freaking bookkeeping. I hate
Exactly.
doing that. Right?
Yeah.
Auto unsubscribe to newsletters that marketing teams subscribe me to. I have to do that at least like 10 times a week. Do that. Automate that for me.
That
Don't
would be a
clean my
huge time
car.
savings.
Right? Vacuum the floor of my car.
Yeah. Declutter my
Don't
desk,
write my
please.
blog post. Don't write my code. That's my part. Yeah, I think automating our absolute favorite parts of the job seems like not the best idea. And we don't, because we take the pleasure away from, and then what if we can't attract new software developers?
Yeah.
Because they're
Or we
like,
attract
oh,
the
it's
kind
not
that
fun
don't like to write
anymore.
code, that only like to do the other stuff.
Yeah, because I remember when I became, you've experienced this, more senior and more senior and more senior. And one day I'm like, why do I spend more time in meetings than writing code? When did this happen?
The sad day of realization that you have become
What
what
have I
you
done?
once hated. Yeah. What life choices have brought me to this point? Yeah.
But so what will happen with our attracting people to do this job? Because like I was a very weird dev, Adam, where I loved fixing bugs and my team would joke that I was the bug slayer. And I really liked fixing, especially super complex, super weird bugs, like where it's like intermittent. I'm like, yeah, that's hard. And a lot of the team was like, good, because I don't want to do that. But then I became more senior and they're like, we're not going to waste our senior dev fixing really hard bugs. And instead you're going to architect stuff and whatever. I got to learn new skills, which was awesome. But like, like most devs in my experience do not love fixing bugs. And then we're telling them that's going to be the main part of your job. And
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to go. Are we going to attract different types of people to the field, Adam?
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder. And it's almost as if the level of diverse thought and diverse skill sets is probably going to even need to increase to be able to kind of cover that. Because there will be people who love the process of automating the entire pipeline. That might be their jam. And it might be their jam to like figure out the best way to like throw Chaos Monkey into different parts of the process. Like that'd be great. But that means that somebody else needs to be really good at writing code and checking, and not just that.
Yeah. I also think that, so a thing that I think is important and I'd love your opinion on is, so everything you get from the AI, you need to check it. And in my opinion, understand it if you're going to commit it. And there's lots of people that either like they're low code, no code. They have no idea what the heck that means. It could be written in another language and it's just as good for them. And so I feel like you shouldn't be submitting work with your name on it that you don't understand. And that is a thing that we are doing. And if they don't even understand it, how can they possibly make sure it's safe?
That's interesting. That is interesting. And I don't think I would fight you on that necessarily. What I would point to is historically new tools and new technologies have not gone that route. It's kind of been the opposite. And so I wonder, while right now we need people to understand exactly what they're submitting, will that stay that way? Or are we going to expect the tools to get smart enough that you don't have to understand and we just let that go?
I would love it. I would love that.
Yeah.
That would be great. So here's what I would love, Adam, in Tanya's dreamland. I would love it if, first of all the main AI models were trained on more secure code. I would like that.
What?
I would like-
Wait, let's big
I know.
pause. Big pause. Are you saying that the biggest AI models have been trained on trash code?
Yes, I am.
Do
They
you
have
mean
been
that
trained
trash
on
in will equal trash out? Is that what you mean?
That's what I mean, Adam. It is a
Wow.
shocking idea that garbage in creates garbage out. No one could
Wow.
have predicted this in introductory computer science classes.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing in the world. I think I need to stop and sit on that for a second, because do you think that that's widely understood?
I don't think people know that, no.
I don't think
Like-
so either.
Like when I create training materials, I do this thing called bad, better, best. And so I have bad code to start. And so like we learn a lesson. So let's say like we should validate the input we get into our system to see if it's dangerous. And then and then we go and we look at some code that's bad. And usually there's like no input validation, or the input validation is like super broken. It's in the wrong spot, whatever, right? And then like, what do you think? And they're like, this is pretty bad. I'm like, why is it bad? Right? And then we do better, so we fix that one part. And then like we do best, where it's like there's multiple layers of defenses and it's super hardened, okay? And when I ask the AI to make the code example for me, it's 80% of the time. So at first it was 100%. Now it's only 80% of the time. It is the bad code example. And I didn't ask for it to be bad. Out of the box, it's shit. It's completely missing the security control, or it's implemented like very poorly. And as a result, like, this is awesome as a trainer, because it sounds dumb, but it's like easier to make something bad turn good than something good be like, how do I bad this?
Yeah.
How do I make this terrible? Because that's not how my brain works now, right? Because like security's on my mind, just like you. Security's on your mind, and so you see things that are problems and you fix them, which is wonderful. But it's trained on mostly open source stuff. And do I think open source maintainers are less talented than non-open? No, that's not what I think. What I think is that they don't have money for a security team.
Yeah.
I think they don't have money for a pen tester. I think that they don't have enterprise level security tools. They're using usually free open source stuff or nothing.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of them, it's their hobby and it's their love, and that's great. But because they're not being paid to do it, it's not necessarily at professional level. Like, we're getting hobbyists work, and that's what we've trained on, because that's what it had permission to train upon, right?
Yeah.
And so I wish I was trained on better code. And that's like just step 0 in Tanya Dreamland. There's so much more. Like, I wish that then, so Microsoft has, in Copilot, they have these guardrails. And I don't know if you've ever seen it generate a bunch of code and then it disappears and then it generates it again. That's because it broke a guardrail. And so it took it away and was like, no, that's not acceptable. And it fixed it, which is cool. So what if we had the AI and it's been trained on way better code, and then it goes to a RAG server that has a whole ton of security rules for design, for secure coding, for architecture, for everything. And it goes and it references that first, and it's like, oh, I know that the with statement in JavaScript is very bad and completely ruins static analysis tools. I was going to use that. I'm not allowed to use that. That's against the rules. So it redoes and then it gives you the code. And then after that, we have it go through an MPC server that runs, all the AppSec tools, which I hope are going to evolve quite a bit. I know all the AppSec companies are like hauling butt right now, trying to build AI into their tools, but I'm hoping they'll take a step above that and have the tools built for AI instead, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then we get the code. And then we start doing all the processes we would do. So we get this much, like, where it's been checked, essentially, it's been trained for better, and then it's been checked against, and then we've run tests, and then we get it. That would be, if we could give every dev that to start, you and I could sleep so much better.
Yeah, no, completely. And I do know of a certain company whose name shall remain silent here that actually builds that kind of automation into the pipeline using AI, because if you don't, it should be agnostic of whatever kind of code is coming in. There will be bad devs, there will be good devs, there will also be vibe coding that's coming through. All of those should go through the same kind of process where AI actually looks at it, and even in not an adversarial nature, but even in a way that the different agents are able to look at the same code, talk to each other, argue with each other, and then show this is the reason why I did that. Yeah, some really good companies out there.
I want to see that. I want to see
Artist,
that.
Artist does that. But yeah,
we have no idea who does that.
Yeah, somebody out there. So in the remaining time that we have, one of the things that I love to talk to people about, and I love to ask people, especially when we're having security and DevSecOps security conversations, is what is a fight that you would like to pick with your peers? What is a thing that your peers do that you would just go to the mattresses with them about? Like, what is something that you wish that they would stop doing and you would fight them about? Metaphorically, of course.
I wish that all the security teams would be nice to devs.
Yeah.
A lot of them aren't nice to devs. And they're like, oh, they're stupid, or they don't try hard, or they don't care about security. It's like, they do care. It's that they have 12 priorities and we're one of them. Yeah. And they're being torn apart. I was joking with someone. I was like, developers have so much pressure on them. I'm surprised most of them don't turn into diamonds after a few years. Like they just, they have so many things pulling at them from so many different ways. And I wish that all my colleagues would realize there are partners, and they can be like great, like people to work with if we can understand that we're one of their priorities, and then we can connect with them better. And if we understand all the things they're working on, we could be more reasonable. I've received like a ton of criticism in my career for, this might sound weird, but being too soft on devs. Like I'll say, oh, okay, so you had this happen. Okay, well, it can wait 2 weeks. Because I know that I understand, I've been there, and I know that like this huge priority has to happen, and that bug that's high, that's in prod, that's been in prod for 18 months already, can wait till Tuesday, right? And then my peers are just like, you always give in, and I'm like, no, like they're still gonna do it. It's a few more days. Like the chances of us having an incident in that time and us previously, and like it could happen, right? But I'm like, I think we should accept that risk. I think it's gonna be okay. And
I like that.
Yeah, but there's other times where I'm like, no, I'm disagreeing with you. Like, this is important. And then I've spent a lot of time, Adam, learning how to explain in their words why I'm super concerned about a thing. Because in the past, security folks to me were just like, 'cause I said so. And I'm like, well, you're not my dad, and that never worked for him either. So...
Same. Yeah, no, I feel that. Yeah. I feel that deeply. Yeah, and I think along the same lines, like I would pick the fight with my peers that very similar is like stop treating your users as if they're the problem. Like there are humans at the end of that keyboard. They're gonna be humans. So like build the system appropriately to be safe for it. Okay, last thing, because we don't have very long left, is security hot takes. A security hot take is something that you think might be controversial, not necessarily towards your peers. But I'll give my example, and this is stolen from somebody else because it hurt my feelings when they said it. And so I'll use it now. My security hot take is that security people need to have a hobby that doesn't involve a screen. They need to do something away from a screen at some point in their lives, which I found personally very insulting because that's kind of all I do. I even read books on screens. And so I've been trying to do better about that. But that's my security hot take. Do you agree or disagree with that one?
I think that all people need to have hobbies that don't just have a screen so we can move our bodies and be healthy. I mean, maybe if you could use a screen and still move your body and be healthy.
Yeah.
That'd be okay.
I agree. I think I like that one almost better than mine. Yeah. So what's your security hot take? What's the thing that you think is controversial that you want to push?
I think DevSecOps failed.
That it failed?
I think that it didn't go how we hoped it would. And I was one of the biggest fans. And I just see all of these backlogs of 40, 50, 60,000 bugs. And no one knows where to start. And they're just so overwhelmed. And it's not creating the value that we thought it would create at every org. So it's working at some places. But overall, we thought it would be this magic bullet. And it turned out to not be.
Ooh, I agree that it did fail completely. 100% was the thing that was going to save us all. Did not come to fruition. Like, I don't even think that it actually made it into the actual day-to-day lives of most devs in most places. But I think that there are opportunities to fix that through the right kind of automation, the right kind of organizational change. Again, not to be a commercial for anybody, but...
No, but better tooling, better processes, especially like education, I think we could do a lot better. Especially also including as much context as possible into the information that we're giving the end user.
Well, Tanya, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you joining us. Love the opinions, love the places that you would like to take us as an industry. And we can't wait to hear more from you, both in written form, in blogs, and apparently in music that we'll be looking for in the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Adam. Bye.
Bye.